Guys, welcome back. It is Racer X, and today I want to do a little video that I've actually been meaning to do for quite some time. Now, as you know, I've got the 2019 Challenger Scat Pack behind me. I've also got my Old Faithful, my 2016 Dodge Charger Hellcat that packs more than 1,000 horsepower. Absolutely love both of these two cars, and I've done some comparison videos between the Scat Pack and the Hellcat, showing you different things about these two cars. But what I have never done is really kind of gone over the difference between a Challenger and a Charger. And there's an awful lot of people out there that really are kind of on the fence. Should I buy the 4-door? Should I buy the 2-door? And I know inherently they are very different cars, even though there are some similarities. But I want to kind of run through what I really like about both cars, and maybe it will help somebody out there make some sort of a decision about what car they may like to have. So I want to cover some of those details. Also, guys, if you are new to the channel, please make sure you slap the subscribe button down on the bottom. Let's go ahead and roll through here. Okay, so a couple of key things here. Really the only way to do a fair comparison between a Challenger and a Charger is to just assume that we're talking about the same trim level of car, meaning that it could be an SXT, a GT, it could be an RT, an SRT, it could be a Scat Pack, a Hellcat, a Red Eye. Obviously the Demon is just a Challenger at this point, so we'll kind of throw that one out. But really, you've got all these different trim levels, guys, so we have to assume all the trim levels are the same when we do these comparisons between the two cars. Really what I wanted to do with this little video was to kind of spark just a little bit of debate, because there's an awful lot of people out there that absolutely love the Challenger, that actually really don't even like the Charger, and then vice versa. There are some people that absolutely love that Charger, just don't really like the look of the Challenger for whatever reason. And so really, guys, it's healthy to spark a little bit of debate. Keep in mind, this is purely subjective. I'm going to give you my opinion on, you know, what I think each car does well or better. And for those of you out there that differ from my opinion, please feel free to comment down below, because you know what, guys, that's fun to me. A little bit of debate between car guys or women is always fun. So feel free to give me your opinion on if you think I'm right or I'm wrong, off base, whatever. All right, guys, my very first category that I want to rate is looks. I mean, that's kind of one of the biggest things us car people, you know, we buy with our hearts, right? So when you talk about the look of a car, these two cars obviously look very, very different. And so, you know, the Challenger has more of an old school look to it. Obviously, it's a throwback in time to the muscle car era, which kind of tells you a little bit how these two cars drive, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. But obviously, very different look. The Challenger, you know, it's got that kind of broad look to it, broad face to it. This car looks really mean from the back because it's got that extended spoiler on it. The Charger, guys, completely different story. Very different body lines on this car. As you can see, it doesn't have that same old school type flair to it. But boy, that is a mean looking 4-door. In my opinion, that is the meanest looking 4-door sedan on the planet. I absolutely love the lines of this car. I love the way the hood looks. Now granted, I've got a few aftermarket stuff on there, but I mean, you're basically talking about new school versus old school look, guys. As I mentioned before, this is a subjective thing, so it just depends on what you like and what you don't. Both cars are fantastic looking. So there's the body line on the Challenger, which is just beautiful. The body line on this Charger is just awesome. And just one more quick look at the front of these two monsters. They are so different, but both of them are just beautiful in their own way. Okay, so from a looks perspective, I had to call this one a draw. I'll show you guys the scoreboard at the end, but I had to call this one a draw just because the two cars are so different and so just so neat. I really couldn't decide which one I personally like better. Initially, I've always liked the Charger better, but having owned the Challenger, it has grown on me quite a bit, and I actually really enjoy the look of that car as well. So the next item up is weight. So obviously we're talking about a car that is bigger in the Charger. You're talking about a 2-door versus a 4-door. So as you can imagine, yes, you will save a little bit of weight, even though both these cars, in my opinion, are still really heavy. I think most car people will agree on that. Typically, regardless of trim, you're going to have about 100 to 200 pounds difference in favor of the Challenger being lighter. And that's just because of the difference between the longer wheelbase and the two cars, guys. One's a two-door, one's a four-door. So if you're looking for something lightweight, something at least a little bit lighter, the Challenger wins this one. So the next item up, passenger comfort. Now, you can imagine you're comparing a two-door to a four-door, so you can obviously imagine which one will win this piece of it. But I will say that the Challenger's back seat is not awful for a two-door car. You can kind of see it back here behind me. It is it's adequate for a two-door car, but certainly cramped when you compare it to the Charger. Now, I'm actually in the back seat of the Charger right now, and I will tell you, I mean, even compared to other four-door cars, this car feels very comfortable and very roomy. I absolutely, I almost never get to sit back here, but in terms of just being comfortable and roomy and just a really nice place to sit, the seats are comfortable. Yeah, obviously, hands down, the Charger is where it is at. So if you are, if you've got a family, a decent-sized family, maybe 2-3 kids or whatever, obviously the Charger may be the best bet for you because this is comfortable, it's easy to get in and out of, whereas in the Challenger, obviously you have to push the seat forward and kind of climb in and finagle your way into the back seat, and it's just a more cramped feel. Difference between a two-door and a four-door. So the Charger, obviously, when it comes to passenger comfort, wins easily. And there you can see just how spacious it is. Okay, so next item up is aerodynamics. So, the truth is that you would think that the two-door Challenger would be more aerodynamic than the four-door Charger. Simply is not the case, and the Hellcat is a perfect example of that. When the Hellcat first came out, the Challenger was rated at 199 mile an hour, and simply because of the aerodynamics of the Charger, even though it's a bigger car, it is more aerodynamic, which is really funny to think about, but it is, and that top speed is actually rated at 204 directly from the factory. And of course, now they're coming out with more powerful engines in these cars, so that may change at some point. But in terms of just all-around aerodynamics, the Charger is actually the more aerodynamic of the two cars and the faster overall car from the factory. So the next item up for comparison is engine heat. And for some of you guys, you may not care, but I'm a racer. Most of you guys that follow my channel know that I absolutely love to race. I've been doing it a long time. So engine heat makes a huge difference when it comes to consistency and how much horsepower your car is going to continue to make. And believe it or not, for some odd reason, the Challenger seems to cool better than the Charger does. And I've noticed this kind of across the board. Regardless of trim level, it's just the way the two cars are made, it's the way the air flows through the car, but the IATs, the intake air temperatures on the Challenger seem to come down faster, and they also seem to not build quite as high. It's just the way that the cars are made and a difference between the two cars. So if you are a racer and that matters to you in terms of getting the engine temperature down, and like I said, this is regardless of trim, whether it's even a Hellcat, an SRT, for some odd reason, the Challengers just seem to stay a little bit cooler. So for those of you that care about keeping the engine cool to keep it consistent at the racetrack in terms of performance, the Challenger wins this one. So the next item up is actually driver feel. And what I mean by that is, how do the two cars differ in terms of the way they handle and the way they feel to drive? And in my opinion, this is probably the most important comparison of all of these things when talking about which car you could potentially buy. Now, I will say that the two cars, obviously, they feel very different to drive. I'm in the 2019 Scat Pack Challenger right now, and this car was engineered, and it feels like a muscle car when you drive it. I mean, it just kind of has the, it doesn't feel tremendously refined. Now, I want to qualify that. It doesn't feel bad. It feels great, actually, but it doesn't feel like a refined, scalpel type machine like you would find in, say, a 911. It's just very different. It's a muscle car. It's got a little bit of weight to it, even though the steering feel is still pretty light because of the electric steering. But it just driving this thing around, and you can just feel the back weight, or the weight in the back of the car just kind of pushing you. And I mean, for anybody that's ever driven a true muscle car, this is almost the very definition of what a muscle car should feel like to drive. I mean, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it, but so much different than the Charger. There's no right or wrong to it. It just has a little bit different feel to it when you're driving it around. Just the way that it pushes and the way it steers, the way it moves. And you almost have to drive it to kind of feel it. There's, like I said, there's no right or wrong, but you just have to really drive the two cars to feel the difference. Now in the Charger, things change quite a bit. Has a completely different driving feel to it. Even though the car is slightly bigger and it's slightly heavier, the car feels really well balanced, like a traditional sports car would be. And believe it or not, it doesn't have as much body roll as you think, especially if you put this suspension in like in sport or track mode. The car feels really well poised, like a typical sports car should. Just going around, just the way the car moves and the way that it accepts turns and things like that. A car this big and this fast should not be able to do the things that it does, and that's what makes them so neat. But just a completely different driving feel. It's amazing that you can have a sports car feel in something that weighs 4,600 pounds. But I will say, when you compare the two cars, Challenger's more of a traditional muscle car type feel. You feel it when you drive it, and you can kind of feel the difference in the Charger in terms of the balance and the way that the car puts the power down. Very different feel. It's also very different in terms of the way they transfer weight. This one has a longer wheelbase to it, so I feel like the weight transfer actually is a little better in this car. And you'll hear a lot of the guys at the track say they have a little bit of wheel hop with their Challengers. Some guys don't have an issue with it, but I don't really have that much problem in terms of wheel hop with my Charger, just the way this thing squats and the way it transfers weight. So it's just a difference between the two cars. Do you like more of a sports car feel? Do you like more of a muscle car feel? Anyway, guys, in my opinion, it's a draw. It's all personal opinion. So the next thing I want to talk about is visibility. I mean, when you're talking about the different things you look at from a car perspective, part of the reason my wife didn't like the Camaro is because she couldn't see out of it. So when you talk about the visibility aspect, obviously the Charger, it's just better. You know, you have a bigger windshield in the front, you've got big windows in the back, whereas in the Challenger, they're small. So from a visibility perspective, you sit up a little bit different in this car than you do in the Challenger. The Challenger has a little bit more of a cockpit type feel, but you can see out of this car better than you can the Challenger. That doesn't mean the Challenger is bad by any stretch of the imagination. As a matter of fact, for a two-door car, I actually think it's one of the better ones out there for visibility, but it doesn't compare to the Charger in terms of just being open and being able to see everything that's going on around you. Definitely the Charger gets the advantage when it comes to visibility. Another big thing I want to compare is simply the ergonomic differences between these two cars, and that's kind of where the rubber meets the road here. Is ergonomically, how different are they? And they're actually quite a bit different, not only in just the way they drive, but just in terms of how you sit in them. Yes, the seats feel basically the same, but everything else around you kind of feels different, and I want to show you some of those differences. One of the things that I really like about the Challenger is kind of the center console and the way that it has a cockpit type feel, meaning that the center area basically wraps around towards the driver, giving you almost the illusion that it's more of like a driver-oriented or a cockpit type feel. I just really like that aspect of things here in terms of just the way that the driver has control over the car. Certainly a very different feel than the Charger. And here you can see the Charger. You can see it's basically completely flat across there. You don't get that little section right in here that kind of lifts up a little bit. It's just a different feel, guys. It's a more open feeling car, whereas the Challenger feels, like I said, a little bit more like a cockpit, which I actually really like. I will say that one thing a lot of people have pointed out, and I do not know the answer to why Dodge did this, but essentially when you go to unroll the window, or unwind the window, whatever you want to call it, unroll it, obviously you hit it once, it goes down, comes right back up. You hit it once, there it goes. The Challenger does not have auto up. I don't know why that is. A lot of people hate that. It would be kind of nice if you could just do that. Why they didn't, I have no idea, but you do not get auto up in the Challenger, which is a little bit frustrating. What can you do? When it comes to trunk size, guys, believe it or not, they actually are really close. I don't know what the hell my wife had in here. Looked like she was trying to grow some, I don't know. At any rate, but the trunk sizes in these are comparable, which is actually quite surprising. The opening on the Challenger is a little smaller, but you can actually fit quite a bit there. The Charger is also nice because you do get the not only the heated seats back here, but you do get the USB ports for passenger comfort, which obviously you do not get in the Challenger. So when it comes to interior ergonomics, once again, we're talking about something subjective here. There are things I can find that I like better about the Charger, and there are also things that I like better about the Challenger. I want to give the very slight edge to the Challenger just because I really do like that cockpit type feel. It does feel a little bit more closed in the Challenger. It doesn't feel quite as roomy, but it feels good, and everything is positioned well inside the car. And I just really like the fact that you know, the console is more driver oriented. It actually wraps around towards you. Everything kind of wraps towards the driver, and it kind of gives you more of that in control type feel that I really enjoy. Some people may actually like the, you know, the open kind of, you know, different feel of the Charger. I like them both, but if I had to give the slight edge, I would definitely give the edge to the Challenger on this one. And last but not least, there's the cool factor, which, guys, that's why we buy these cars, because they look cool, they sound cool. There's just something visceral about owning a sports-oriented car or a performance-oriented car. And guys, I mean, that's why we do it. We love them. And you know what? When you look at these two vehicles, I mean, I just don't know if there's a whole lot else you can say in terms of cool factor. Yes, there's other stuff out there. You know, you talk about, you know, Vipers or even other manufacturers, Z06s and Porsches, GTRs, all that stuff. So many cool cars out there, but guys, these are right up there on the cool factor scale, both of them. And whether you like the Charger or the Challenger better, I mean, guys, that's the most subjective thing in the world is cool factor. But you know what? These guys are right up there on the list as far as I'm concerned. It's a full draw whether you like old school or new school look better. But guys, these cars look fantastic. Very high on the cool factor list. It's a draw. So here's what it all boils down to. Here's my final scoreboard for both cars. And I just kind of want to run through it real quick and kind of rehash this. So from a looks perspective, they were dead even. It kind of goes with the last category here, which is cool factor. They kind of fit right in there together. Both of them were a draw. On the weight, Challenger's lighter. Challenger wins. The passenger comfort, obviously Charger's 4 doors. Charger wins that one all day. The aerodynamics, the Charger is actually the more aerodynamic of the two cars. The engine heat, the Challenger seems to dissipate engine heat better than the Charger does. Challenger wins that one. The driver feel, it's a draw, guys. Depends on what you like. Muscle car versus sports car. They both feel fantastic to drive, but they're very different. Also, interior ergonomics. I gave the very slight edge to the Challenger just because that's my personal opinion. And then, of course, we've got visibility. The Charger being 4-door, having the bigger windows. The Charger's better for visibility. And, guys, that pretty much covers it. So, as you can see, I mean, it's a dead draw. We've got 6 on 6. And, you know, we kind of knew this was going to happen from the start, guys. There's so much subjectivity when it comes to whether you like the Charger or the Challenger better. But they're both fantastic cars. They do things very well in very different ways. And, guys, they're a couple of the most awesome Mopars that you can get out there right now. Like I said, regardless of trim level, both very neat cars. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. I know this is going to spark some debate out there in terms of what's better. But, guys, that's the fun of it. Once again, if you've not subscribed to the channel, please make sure you do so. Until next time, Racer X.